There's something almost comforting about routine, how it dulls the senses, muffles suspicion, and lets you believe everything is exactly as it should be. That's how I felt about our mornings. Every Sunday, we went to the farmer's market. Always the same rhythm. Coffee at the corner cafe, our son Thomas picking out pastries he never finished, and my wife, Elise, wandering off to talk to vendors she claimed knew her by name. I never questioned it. Why would I? Elise and I had been married for 7 years. She was radiant in a quiet, unassuming way, olive-toned skin, thick auburn hair tied back loosely like she didn't care, but of course she did. She was careful in the way women who've never stopped being looked at are. She had this laugh, light, crisp, with a soft rise at the end, that she reserved for people who weren't me. It used to be mine. I'm a contractor, run a small business laying tile and stonework. The kind of work that leaves your hands rough and your body sore in a good way. I liked getting home and seeing Elise barefoot in the kitchen, humming as she stirred sauce or lit candles for no occasion. We had a rhythm, a life that made sense. Then came the Sundays. They started changing about 6 months ago. She started wearing makeup to the market, just a touch of mascara, a little lipstick, too subtle to question directly. I'd be stupid to say I didn't notice, but when she smiled at me and handed me the grocery list, I told myself it was nothing. She was just sprucing up. She'd take Thomas to the bakery stand, then linger just a little longer at the flower stall. Sometimes, she'd be gone 20 minutes. I always found her eventually, carrying a paper bag with too many vegetables for what she'd planned to cook, cheeks flushed like she'd been jogging. And then there was the fruit stand. A corner stall run by a guy I didn't recognize from the neighborhood. He was younger than me, mid-30s, maybe. Lean, clean-shaven. The type who rolled up his sleeves like he wanted everyone to know he had forearms. His stand was always arranged too perfectly. Not the random piles of cucumbers and peaches like the others, but meticulous pyramids, polished apples glinting like jewelry in the morning sun. That's where I started to find Elise, week after week. At first, I saw nothing. Just him handing her a peach, her brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Then I noticed the smiles. They weren't the kind you give to a vendor. They lingered. They made her eyes go glassy. And once, just once, I caught her touching his arm as she laughed. That was when I knew. I didn't confront her. That's not how I'm wired. Instead, I started showing up earlier, taking a different route around the market, pretending to lose track of her, but always watching. I noticed the little details, the way she leaned closer to him than necessary, how she bit her lip as she sampled the fruit he handed her. The next Sunday, I told my buddy Matt to follow her. He's the kind of guy who doesn't ask why. You hand him $50 and he follows the tail. Simple. That afternoon, he sent me 3 blurry photos. Elise, at the back of the fruit stand, behind the curtain flap that led into the vendor's van. Him, standing too close. Her hand on his chest. I couldn't eat dinner that night. Elise asked what was wrong. I said I had a headache. She reached across the table and took my hand, gave it a little squeeze. You've been working too hard, she said. Her voice still soft, still mine. For a second, I wondered if I was imagining the whole thing. But I wasn't. 2 days later, I left work early. Told the guys I had an appointment. Parked across from the market just after noon. It was closed for the day, but I wasn't there for groceries. I waited. At 12:47, a white van pulled up. He stepped out, the fruit man, wearing the same linen shirt, sleeves rolled, collar open. Elise arrived 5 minutes later. She wore the yellow sundress I liked, the one she hadn't worn in months. They didn't talk much. He opened the back of the van, and she followed him in. I sat there for nearly an hour, staring at the closed doors. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat, counting the bricks in the wall opposite me. At one point, a breeze blew through the cracked window of my truck, and I caught a whiff of peaches. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched her undress quietly in the dark. She folded her dress carefully, as if it mattered, then climbed into bed. She didn't notice that I hadn't moved in hours. Just kissed my cheek and whispered, "Love you." I nodded. The next morning, I found an excuse to stay home from work. I told her I needed to fix the sink. She left like usual, kissed me on the forehead, said she'd pick up some fruit on the way home. I waited until the door closed. Then I drove to the market again. But not to spy. I needed to see him, face to face. I needed to know what kind of man takes another man's wife with such ease, with no shame. I didn't know what I would say or do. When I got there, the stall was already open. He was arranging apples, as usual, each one polished, perfectly angled. I stood there, just watching. He looked up, smiled. "Can I help you?" I stepped forward. "I think you already have," I said. His expression didn't change. No fear, no guilt, just a small tilt of his head, like he was calculating. "I'm guessing you're Elise's husband," he said, cool as a lake. "She didn't mention your name." That's when I realized he didn't care. And that, somehow, hurt more than anything. I don't know what I expected him to say. Maybe denial, maybe shame, but the indifference in his voice stung like an open palm, as if I were nothing more than an asterisk in their little love story. A background prop. "Elise didn't mention your name." Those 6 words had a weight I wasn't prepared for. They pressed against my chest like bricks. "Matthew," I said flatly, ignoring the rawness in my throat. "Her husband." He gave a short nod, then turned back to his apples. His fingers moved with that same studied calm, as if we were just 2 strangers having a chat about produce. "All right," he said. "I figured something like this would happen eventually." I stared at him, the morning sun warming the back of my neck, while a different kind of heat burned through my ribs. I took a half step closer, then stopped myself. I'd never hit a man in my life. Not once. But in that moment, I wanted to make an exception. "How long?" I asked, even though I hated myself for needing to know. He didn't even look up. "A few months, give or take." My vision went soft around the edges. A low ringing started in my ears, like the echo of something caving in. "Why?" I said, though it came out hoarse. "Why her?" He finally looked at me then, not with cruelty or triumph, just a strange, quiet pity. "She's lonely," he said, "and you're distracted." I nearly laughed. Distracted. Like building a life, a home, a future for the 3 of us had somehow rendered me negligent. As if putting food on our table, fixing the roof when it leaked, and keeping the lights on was a selfish act. I clenched my jaw so tightly I felt a vein twitch in my neck. "She has a son," I snapped. "A life. A husband." "She also has needs," he replied. My fist tightened, and for a second I thought I'd swing. But something in me held back. Not out of restraint, not even morality, but something deeper, weariness. A terrible, consuming exhaustion. It's hard to feel anger when betrayal has hollowed you out from the inside. "You think you're giving her something I can't?" I asked. He shrugged. "I'm not trying to compete with you, man. She came to me." I turned away, heart thudding loud in my ears, and walked back to my truck without another word. I didn't trust myself to stay. The door slammed shut behind me, and the echo rang like a bell tolling something lost. Driving home, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stared out the windshield, blinking too often, trying to figure out how my marriage had quietly died in the background while I was still living in it. Elise was already home when I pulled into the driveway. She stood by the kitchen window, slicing tomatoes for lunch, moving like someone who hadn't just detonated the core of my world. When she saw me, she smiled. A soft, practiced thing. But I saw the hesitation behind it. "You're back early," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "Everything okay?" I walked past her, poured a glass of water, and drank half of it in one go. Then I set it down and leaned on the counter, eyes fixed on the floor. "Elise," I said quietly, "do you love him?" She froze. I didn't need her to answer. The way her breath caught, the way her hand gripped the towel a second too long, that was the answer. "What are you talking about?" she asked, though her voice was brittle. "I saw you," I said, raising my eyes to meet hers. "The van. The stall. I know." Her shoulders sank. Just a little. But enough. She didn't deny it. She didn't even look shocked. Instead, she folded the towel slowly, placing it on the counter like the next move mattered more than the conversation unraveling between us. "Matt," she began softly. "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't try to explain it away. Just tell me why." She turned toward me, and for the first time, her eyes were raw. Not guilt, not sorrow, just worn. Like she'd rehearsed this conversation in her head and never found a version of it that didn't end in ruin. "I didn't plan it," she said. "It just happened." The oldest excuse in the book. But she meant it. I could hear it in her voice. The accidental unraveling of a woman who didn't wake up one day intending to destroy a life, but did it anyway. "I was so tired," she continued. "Tired of always being the glue. The mom. The scheduler. The cook. You were always working. Always distracted. And he saw me." "I see you," I whispered. She shook her head. No, you see the version of me you married. The woman who had time for bubble baths and books and dreams. I've changed, Matt. And somewhere along the way, you stopped noticing. I wanted to argue, to shout that I noticed everything. Every line on her face, every sigh at night, every new wrinkle in our routines. But the truth was uglier. I had noticed, but I didn't know what to do with it. What happens now? I asked. She looked away. I don't know. I left the house before I could say something I'd regret. I ended up at a hardware store, wandering aisles of screws and drills and rows of heavy silence. My hands needed to touch something real, something that didn't lie. I bought nothing. That night, we didn't speak. She slept on her side of the bed, facing the wall. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of our marriage quietly suffocating in the dark. Over the next week, things fell into an eerie rhythm. We still made breakfast, still packed lunches, still brushed past each other in the hallway like strangers with too many shared memories. She never mentioned the fruit man again. But every Sunday, she still asked if we were going to the market. And every Sunday I said yes, because I wasn't done yet. Not until I understood the whole story. The strange thing about betrayal is how it doesn't burn all at once. It seeps. Slow. Quiet. Like water under a door. The first crack in your foundation, and it just keeps spreading until everything you thought was solid starts to feel warped. That's how the days felt now. Warped. We didn't fight. Elise still made dinner. I still fixed the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. We still watched Thomas practice drawing dinosaurs at the kitchen table. From the outside, we were just another tired couple managing life. But every glance was loaded. I noticed how often she checked her phone now. I caught her once, thumb frozen mid-text, eyes glassy. She didn't see me watching. Maybe she didn't care. That Sunday, I went to the market alone. I'm not feeling great, she said, rubbing her temples like an actress giving a subtle performance. You go ahead. Pick up the usual. I nodded, kissed the top of her head, and said I'd be back by noon. She smiled, the same smile she used on the mailman or neighbors, thin and serviceable. The drive there felt heavier. I took the long way, through the old part of town where the roads narrowed and the trees hung low. The air smelled like warm asphalt and pollen. My chest buzzed like it knew what I was about to do. I didn't go for the fruit. I went around the market perimeter, circled once, then parked behind the alley near the vendor trucks. That's where I saw it. His van. Same color, same logo on the back. He wasn't in it yet. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. At 10:34, Elise arrived. Not from the house. Not from home. She came walking from the opposite direction, through the trees lining the west edge of the market, wearing a coat too warm for the weather and sunglasses too large for the shade. Her steps were fast, anxious. She didn't see me. She tapped on the back of the van. It opened. She stepped in. My mouth went dry. Not because of what was happening, but because of how natural it looked. Routine. Like they had done this before. Many times. I didn't follow. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit record. I wanted to hear what betrayal sounded like. I walked slowly to the van, not close enough to cast a shadow, but close enough to capture muffled voices. I didn't hear moans or the wet slap of skin. What I heard was worse. I told him we need space, Elise whispered. Did he believe you? The man replied, his voice lower, steadier. I think so. But he's watching now. He knows something. I can feel it. You said he's not the type to react. He isn't, she said. But still, he hasn't touched me in weeks. He just stares. I don't know if it's guilt or grief or fury. There was silence. Then fabric shifting. Maybe a hand brushing her shoulder. Then his voice again. Do you love him? A pause. Then Elise. I don't know. That did something to me. Like something broke and reset in my chest. I stopped the recording and walked back to my truck. I sat there, keys in the ignition, but didn't drive. I watched people laugh, buy jams, carry sunflowers, live their ordinary lives while mine unraveled in increments. When I finally drove off, it wasn't home I headed for. I drove 2 towns over to a motel off Highway 4. Paid cash. Took a room on the 2nd floor. Beige walls, loud AC, bedspread with a pattern too busy to feel clean. I didn't stay the night. I just needed space. Somewhere her perfume hadn't touched. I laid down and closed my eyes, listening to the ceiling fan buzz and wondering how many people had hidden in rooms like this, trying to keep their hearts from breaking open. Back at home, I walked in around 4. Elise was in the kitchen, frying onions. She wore the same clothes. No sign of guilt. She smiled. There you are? Got what we needed? I nodded. Set the bag on the counter. I didn't look her in the eye. That night, she tried to touch me in bed. Not sexually, just softly. Her hand on my arm. I didn't pull away, but I didn't move either. She whispered, "We can fix this, you know." I stayed silent. Over the next week, I made plans. I met with a lawyer. Her name was Evelyn, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. I didn't show her the recording. Not yet. I just asked questions. "Do you have evidence?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Solid?" "Enough to end it clean." She nodded, took notes. "There's a child involved. Be prepared. It complicates everything." I wasn't afraid of a complicated divorce. I was afraid of a complicated future. Shared custody with a woman I no longer trusted. The idea of my son spending weekends in a house where his mother once made love to a stranger inside a fruit van made my stomach churn. Back home, I started scanning old photos. The ones of us at the lake. Her in that white sundress before it faded. Me with my hand on her knee, stupidly unaware that love had a shelf life. Elise kept trying. She made my favorite dinner twice that week. Played old music in the kitchen. Tried to pull me into a dance one evening, but I backed away. "You're still angry," she said. "I'm awake," I replied. She stared at me. Not sad. Just exposed. Like I'd opened a curtain and let the cold air in. "You think I'm evil, don't you?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. "I think you're selfish." "And you're perfect?" I shook my head. "I'm just not a liar." She turned away. The next morning, she packed a small bag and left a note on the counter. "I need time. I'll be at my sister's for a few days. Maybe it's better if we both breathe." I didn't call her. I didn't follow. Instead, I played the recording again. Over and over. Her voice, uncertain. Him, calm. The question. Her pause. "Do you love him?" "I don't know." That wasn't a betrayal. That was the death of something. That was goodbye without saying it. 2 days later, I returned to the market. Alone again. I didn't linger near the van. I walked the stalls, hands in pockets, pretending to be just another man hunting for ripe pears. But I wasn't shopping. I was waiting. And eventually, he showed up. The fruit man. I didn't approach. Not right away. I watched as he unloaded crates, arranged his pyramids, smiled at passers-by. Same confident ease. Like nothing had changed. When the crowd thinned, I stepped up. He saw me. "I figured this day would come," he said. I nodded. "It has. I'm guessing you've decided." "Not quite," I said. "Then what are you doing here?" I leaned closer. Not threatening. Just steady. "Making sure you know one thing," I said. "You didn't win anything. You didn't steal her. She gave herself to you. And you." I looked him over, from his shoes to his smug grin. "You were just available." He looked at me, waiting for more. But there wasn't more. I turned, walked away, and didn't look back. Because now I was ready. I didn't hear from Elise for 4 days after she left. For days of cold dinners and quiet mornings, of Thomas asking when Mommy would be back, and me giving half-hearted answers about soon, and she just needed a little break. He was too young to understand the shape of silence, the way it settles into a house and makes everything feel heavier. He just knew something was missing, and his drawings got darker. More scribbles. Less dinosaurs. On the 5th day, I got her text. "Can we talk? I'm coming home tonight." It landed like a stone in my chest. Not because I didn't expect it, but because I did. It felt too late. Like someone returning to a fire long after the ashes had cooled. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat on the porch with a mug of black coffee and watched the clouds thicken into the kind of sky that promises rain but never delivers. Everything felt paused. Suspended. She arrived around 6 p.m. Same car. Same keys jingling as she stepped up the walk. I heard her pause at the door before it opened. She walked in carrying the same overnight bag she'd taken, looking like she hadn't slept properly in days. Her face was bare, no makeup, no effort. I waited for her to speak first. "I didn't know what else to do," she said softly, stepping inside like a guest. I thought space might help. I stood, leaned against the kitchen counter. "Did it?" I asked. She looked around the house, her eyes landing briefly on the framed photo of us at the lake, before quickly turning away. It helped me see how far we've drifted. I raised an eyebrow. "Drifted?" "Elise, you didn't drift, you jumped." That caught her. Her jaw clenched, eyes watering but not spilling. You're right, she said. I made a mess of everything. Why him? She hesitated. Because he saw me. Because when I was around him, I didn't feel like a mother or a wife or a woman who was failing. I felt wanted. Needed. I nodded slowly. And now? She stepped closer. Now I see what I gave up. What I almost destroyed. Almost. Her voice cracked. I want to fix this, Matt. I want us back. There it was. The moment. The fork in the road. But something inside me didn't budge. I walked to the drawer beside the fridge and pulled out an envelope. Inside was the recording. A copy. I handed it to her. She looked at it, then at me. I know everything, I said. Her face drained. You listened? I had to, I replied. You weren't giving me the truth. I needed to hear it. She slid the envelope back across the counter. What do you want from me? A choice, I said. No more lies. No more in between. If you want this marriage, really want it, you end it with him completely. No contact. No hiding. You go to therapy. We go to therapy. And you tell me the truth even when it's ugly. She nodded, too quickly. No, I said. Don't answer now. Take tonight. Think. Really think. Because if I find out one more thing, just one more lie, it's over. I'll file the papers, and I won't look back. She nodded again, slower this time. That night, she slept in the guest room. I lay awake listening to the quiet. It wasn't peace. It was purgatory. The next morning, I found her sitting at the table, hair wet, mug in her hands. She didn't look at me when I entered. I called him last night, she said. I told him it was over. I blocked his number. Deleted everything. I know that doesn't erase it, but it's done. I poured a cup of coffee and sat across from her. I also called a therapist, she continued. I'm going Friday. I'd like you to come with me. But even if you don't, I'm going. She looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw her, not the version I built in my head, not the ghost she'd been becoming, but her. Flawed, scared, hurting. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered. But I hope, someday you can. I didn't speak right away. I just reached into my pocket and set my wedding ring on the table. I hadn't worn it since the day I saw her at the van. She stared at it, then met my eyes. I'll wear it again, I said, if we get back to being honest. Both of us. She nodded. The weeks that followed were hard. Therapy wasn't magical. It was slow, brutal work. We talked about our disconnects, our mistakes, our silences. Elise cried. I yelled. There were days we left more hurt than healed. But we kept going. She quit the market entirely. Got a part-time job at the community center instead, helping with after-school programs. I helped coach Thomas's soccer team. We started having dinners again, real dinners, not just silent meals. There were nights I still heard her voice in the recording echo through my head. I don't know. It haunted me. But then came a different night. We were folding laundry, of all things. She tossed a towel, it hit my face, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we both laughed. Not forced, not strained, just real. That's when I slipped the ring back on. She noticed, but didn't say anything. She just reached out and touched my hand. Lightly, gently. Weeks turned into months. One morning, I woke to the smell of cinnamon rolls. Elise stood in the kitchen, flour on her cheek, music playing. Thomas ran in circles around her legs, laughing. She looked up, and for a moment, I saw her again. Not the woman she had been, but the one she was becoming. Different, bruised, trying. So was I? I stepped forward and kissed her. Not out of obligation or habit, just because I wanted to. Because I still loved her. Not blindly, not naively, but with eyes wide open. Because forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering and loving anyway.